everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I am going to be talking about whether or not you should spoil your twist in your query. It's a very niche querying topic, but one that I have seen come up more than once, and I definitely have very firm opinions and ideas about this, and kind of addressing this question can potentially help you identify problem spots in your novel or just your pitch if this is a question that you have. And this can come up in a wide variety of novels, not just mysteries and thrillers and things that you think of as relying on twists, but in things like fantasy, sci-fi, even some contemporary novels where somewhere around the middle of your book, there's a big game-changing twist. So, should you spoil your book in the query? No. Most of the agents who I follow and whose opinions I really trust say no, that you shouldn't spoil your book in your query, especially not a big midpoint turn, definitely not the twist at the climax of your novel. Now, the argument that I see all the time from querying writers is, but if I don't tell them about the twist, they're not going to be interested in reading my book. The twist is the thing that makes my book special. Look, I know this pain. I do. I put spoilers for my book in my first ever query, and it wasn't a bad query. I didn't get nowhere with it. I got into a pitch contest with it, but I got some very good advice to not do that because queries are not the same as a synopsis. A synopsis is a blow-by-blow of your plot where you do indeed put all of your spoilers, and many agents want a synopsis. But a query is pitch copy. It's like back cover copy. So if you wouldn't put it on the flap of your book, the thing that readers would see, if you wouldn't spoil your own book for readers, you shouldn't spoil it for an agent. Here's the thing. If you can't make your book sound interesting enough to read without spoiling your major twist or twists, something is wrong with your book. In some cases, it's just wrong with how you're pitching the book and you need some help to realize the things earlier in your book that make it compelling. But sometimes this can indicate a root level problem. I've seen authors argue, well, nothing really happens in the beginning of the book, in the first half of the book. It's just kind of like standard plot. And I'm like, well, then you have a character problem, you have a conflict problem, or a pacing problem. Because even as you're working up to something exciting, there should still be enough to hang your hat on, so to speak. There should still be enough of an interesting setup, character wants, conflicts, and stakes leading up to those twists to interest someone to read. Why would someone want to read 75% of a boring book just to get to a twist? Ultimately, that's not actually an effective story. A twist is not a story. A twist is not a reading experience. It builds off of an otherwise good and entertaining and satisfying reading experience to make that experience deeper and more enjoyable. There are all sorts of tools that you can employ in that build up to the thing, whether that twist is the inciting incident. And the thing is with an inciting incident, you can usually say your inciting incident twist in a query, because we'll talk about what you're going to do in your query. But like midpoint turn and beyond, those are the twists that you shouldn't be spoiling. But even working up to that inciting incident, there are tools and things that you can do to build suspense, to hook in a reader. At its core, your pitch should be interesting enough to get someone to want to read it without saying, oh, and it turns out they're dead the whole time, or whatever your twist is. So that is the thing about a query. A query is a pitch, and it is a tease. So you're allowed to tease or hint at your twist/spoilers. There's an art to it. You want to set up your main kind of character story, conflict, and stakes, but you can definitely and oftentimes should hint, but things aren't what they seem, but someone is hiding a secret. Kind of that linchpin thing that is going to build up to your twist. You can and should include it. So giving you a personal example, when it came time to write my query for Brightly Burning, which is essentially a retelling of Jane Eyre, if you're familiar with Jane Eyre, you know the twist of Jane Eyre, you know what Mr. Rochester has going on in the attic. Well, the tease for that is He's dark and mysterious, and she hears weird things in the night. What is going on the ship? That is a tease that there are darker things going on that are going to lead to the spoilers and the twist. Very often what you can do is find character-based reasons to have interest to read, essentially. Character-based conflicts that are going to pull in the reader's interest. It's not about blowing like, I have this mind-blowing twist at the end, but making everything that comes before that interesting enough that someone will want to read. You are essentially teasing future conflict, and really everyone expects future conflict in a book, but you can use your tease to give a hint as to the flavor of potential big twists to come. And really the best queries are character-based queries. So if you are finding that you don't have a character whose wants and the conflicts in the way, the obstacles that lead to stakes for that character, you don't think it's interesting that anyone would want to read. You have to reevaluate, well, everything that you're using to build up to your twist. Is it going to be satisfying if no one wants to read what comes before that? So this can be a sign that you have revision work to do. Sometimes it is kind of a plot level problem or a premise level problem. Very often when writers struggle with this, it doesn't actually mean your book is broken. Don't worry. It just means that you as the author, and as I said, I literally did this on my first book, are so tied up in the allure of your twist that you are itching to spoil it, because indeed, big twisty things can be the linchpin of a novel. I am working on a book right now where I started with a twist, and I love my twist, and it took me a really long time to figure out how to come up with the other aspects of the plot, the characters and the world and the tropes that I could play with that would sound sexy enough, basically, to lure people in to get to the twists that I really want them to read. But I know that literally it ruins the book if I even hint to you what it is, to be honest. And I can say that of a lot of books, so I do want to just kind of leaving you here on this advice not to spoil your twist in your query, to find ways to make your book sound interesting, because your book should be interesting enough to read. I'm going to read you the back cover copy from Sharp Objects, which happens to be my favorite Gillian Flynn book. Like all thrillers, it's not spoiling it for you to tell you this book has multiple huge twists. They come very late in the book, and incidentally, some of these twists are the reason that I do love this book. But when I'm pitching it to people, I don't want them to not have the same delightful reading experience that I had, so I'm not going to spoil it for them. This has very effective, character-driven back cover copy. So I'm going to read it to you. This would be similar to what you might put in a query. Fresh from a brief stay at a psych hospital, so you've got some character and some conflict and stakes there already, reporter Camille Preaker faces a troubling assignment. She must return to her tiny hometown to cover the murders of 2 preteen girls. See, that's already intriguing, and especially in this genre, that is telling the reader or the agent what the tropes are. This is a small town secrets girls being murdered book with a main character with a troubled past. For years, Camille has hardly spoken to her neurotic, hypochondriac mother, or to the half-sister she barely knows, a beautiful 13-year-old with an eerie grip on the town. She's giving you character, family-based stakes, so you know, oh, I'm going to be reading something that is full of character, conflicts, and dark secrets from the past. Now installed in her old bedroom in her family's Victorian mansion, Camille finds herself identifying with the young victims a bit too strongly. Dogged by her own demons, she must unravel the psychological puzzle of her own past if she wants to get the story and survive this homecoming. Listen to that tease at the end. Things are going to go down, which again, a thriller, this is just kind of, you do expect things to go down, but it indicates those kind of personal, mental, and literal life and death stakes. I want to read this book. I have read this book. I recommend you read this book. This doesn't spoil the book by any stretch. This doesn't spoil the midpoint turn of this book. It definitely doesn't spoil the third act twists. But it's intriguing enough to get you interested in reading. This is a very character-driven blurb. Gone Girl has similarly very clever back cover copy. I do recommend that you look it up because that's a book with a massive twist and it doesn't spoil it in the blurb, and that is what you would compare your query to. So this is just to kind of give you an idea that even the biggest, twistiest books, where often, yeah, the reason we read them is because of the big spoilers. You shouldn't be spoiling them when you're enticing someone, an agent, to read. Many agents, it will ruin their reading experience of your work if you spoil it in the query, and it can actually feel like a bait and switch because queries typically don't have spoilers. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to tease up to either an inciting incident or at best toward Act 2 is kind of the most you should really reveal of your book. Anything beyond that is going to feel more like a plot summary or a synopsis. And agents don't want to know everything that happens. They want to experience the book like a reader would experience the book, going along with the story and seeing your art and your craft of developing it and whether you pull it off. And they want to be genuinely surprised by things. I can definitely see an agent being frustrated if they think that what you've put in your query is a setup, but it turns out to be the solution. And that just is no fun, and it ruins the reading experience. So that is why you should not spoil your twists in your query. Let me know down below any questions you have about this, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I will make more videos about querying and the kind of industry getting an agent process. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.